Donald Trump has secured his path to the Republican presidential nomination after Nikki Haley bowed out of the race following losses in all but one of the Super Tuesday primaries. Here to break down what Canada should expect with Trump on the ballot is former Canadian ambassador to the U.S., Frank McKenna. Hi, Mr. McKenna. Good to see you. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
I wanted to start off and just ask if you were surprised at all at the length of time it took Nikki Haley, to ultimately make the decision she did today.
No, not really. I think she wanted to give voice to her issues, and she had that much time. She had lots of funding behind her, so I think it was very appropriate for her to stay in the race.
She did receive, particularly in a number of the more recent primaries, a hefty size of the vote, somewhere, let's say, between 30 and 40%. Do you think where those votes ultimately go will be key in the presidential election?
They definitely will be key, and there's a lot of exit polling done on that vote, trying to disaggregate it. Some will vote for Trump, that's clear. There's some who won't vote at all, and there are some that will vote for Biden. But I think it's going to be very instructive for people to continue to look at that vote and see where they go.
I have a number of questions for you, of course, on the relationship between Canada and the U.S. in this interim period before the election. But I just wanted to get your quick take also on Joe Biden, and in particular, the significance, in your view, of how he does in the State of the Union.
Well, I think it's important that not only he deliver messages, but also the way in which he delivers those messages. It's become clear now that the image that people have of President Biden is part of the problem for the Democratic Party. He's delivered very sound programming. I think he'll be considered a very consequential president, quite frankly, in the annals of history. But a lot of Americans don't feel that he looks as if he's capable of doing the job at his age. And so to the extent that he can reassure Americans, that will be very important.
Do you think that things like the State of the Union and other public appearances, public speeches are going to be necessary to provide that reassurance over the long run?
Yes, in fact, that's part of the Democratic playbook now. They're going to be having him on more talk shows. He's on TikTok now, which will appeal to a certain audience or not, as the case might be. But they definitely are going to let Joe be Joe, in the words of some of his handlers, and see how that turns out. Because right now he looks, I think, to a lot of people quite stiff, and showing his age, and that is an issue. All of the polling shows that is a significant issue. Americans, generally speaking, don't like the choices they have, and part of the problem is they feel Biden may have some capacity issues at his age.
So over the years and more recently during the initial NAFTA renegotiations, you've provided advice to various Canadian governments and administrations here in Ottawa. If they came to you right now and said, what's your best advice for how to navigate between now and November, what would you say?
Well, I would say, number one, not to interfere in the U.S. election. We don't get to choose the U.S. president. They get to choose. We need to respect the choice. And that means as well, not for us not to be patronizing, not to be moralistic, not to be sanctimonious about their choices. That's going to be hard for Canadians and Canadian political leaders, but we have to do that. And secondly, I believe that we need to go into a really defensive posture within Canada. And by that, I mean equip ourselves for whatever happens south of the border. That includes tackling our productivity shortfall, which is bleeding away a lot of Canadian prosperity, means dealing with interprovincial trade barriers once and for all. It's hard for us to argue against U.S. trade barriers when we have our own up within Canada, getting our fiscal house in order, expanding trade deals with the rest of the world. We need to be the Phoenicians of the world, so we have lots of choices, lots of other opportunities. Have the welcome mat out. Depending on how things go in the United States, there may be some highly skilled immigrants from around the world looking for places to go. Canada could be a receptive place. There could be industry looking to leave. Clean tech is one that comes to mind. And then I think on defense, which is becoming an increasingly prominent issue, we have to show aspirational targets and be more ambitious in what we show to the world.
And do you mean by that, do we need to be unequivocal about the NATO target and a path to meet it, or just targets that are higher than the current ones?
Well, I think we need to address the NATO target. And we need to talk about what we are doing. You know, we're purchasing F-35s. They're spending a lot of money on surface combatant ships. And we also should recognize the fact that we tend to punch above our weight in many ways. When we are in a war zone, we tend to be in the most hostile environment. We also need to make Americans understand that whatever we purchase and other NATO countries, it's almost always from the United States of America. So they end up winning more than they may commonly think in terms of other countries' defense procurements.
Okay, Mr. McKenna, I've got to leave it there. I'm out of time. I appreciate your time and your analysis today. Thank you so much.